You don't have to reach out to a pediatrician with speech and language issues. You can go directly to a speech therapist.
Mhm.
If there's any question about anything medical, I would always recommend at least having that discussion with
Yes.
your pediatricians. So, a lot of times the pediatrician will give you screenings, and if you don't pass the screenings, they're going to refer you anyway.
Mhm.
But sometimes they'll pass all the screenings and you still have a concern. So you can definitely talk to the pediatrician about that, and usually they will refer you to a speech therapist. But if they don't really kind of agree with your concerns, you can easily still go to a therapist, a
Got it.
speech therapist, to do
Good.
that.
Good. So I'll just
Mhm.
underline here, trust your gut, right?
Yes, yes,
Good.
yes, yes. I feel like parents are the parents know their child the most because that's their child.
Yes.
So as much as you need to be open to all the professionals because they have so much knowledge and so
Mhm.
much expertise, you still have to, yeah, trust your gut and know that if you do have a concern, it's valid.
Hey everyone, this is Jonathan Marks with Go to Health. I hope you're having a great day. If you have a young child and you have a concern about either their eating or their speech development, this show is for you. Speech development and eating come from the same portion of the brain, so if there's an issue with one, there may be an issue with both. And the lesson we're going to learn today is if you are concerned about your child, trust your gut. Get some help from either a pediatrician or a speech therapist. The Speech Matters Clinic provides quality private speech, language, feeding, and occupational therapy services to children and adults of all ages. It was founded by Ashlyn Lele, MS, in 2009. Speech Matters offers a personalized and welcoming boutique-style environment catered to each family's specific needs. It's their belief that every person deserves the right to excel and express their unique personality, and they work as a team with you to ensure success. Before we get to Ashlyn, a reminder, you can subscribe to us and visit us at our website at gotohealthmedia.com. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and 5 other podcast networks. And if you like what we're doing, please give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review. We're focused on evidence-based medicine, and your support helps get the word out to more people. Thanks in advance. Hey, welcome to the show. Ashlyn Lele, founder of the Speech Matters Clinic. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, wonderful. So tell
Excellent.
us about your Speech Matters Clinic. What services do you provide and for whom? Let's start there.
Yes, so it is a private practice clinic, and we provide speech therapy and occupational therapy for children, infants, up through adults, but we're mainly pediatric, although I myself do enjoy seeing adults as well.
Mm,
And we provide therapy for the gamut of speech and language and occupational therapy needs, feeding issues, socializing issues, speech and language issues, articulation issues, sensory integration, all sorts of developmental issues that children might need some help with getting where they need to be.
great. And where do you provide your services? Where's your office located, and do you provide telemedicine or telehelp?
Yes, so we are located physically in Charlotte, North Carolina,
Hmm.
and we see lots of kids and adults in our clinic in person. And then we also do provide telehealth to clients as well.
Great.
So both are available.
Good. So how do parents know when their child may be having a speech, language, or feeding delay? What should they be looking for? What should they be concerned about? When should they ask for help?
Right. So there's two main, general answers to this. The first one is, of course, if your doctor recommends going, an evaluation never hurts anything. So
Hmm.
whether you agree or have any concerns or whether you have no concerns at all, it doesn't hurt to just get a baseline and talk to the experts to see, where your child is at that moment.
Hmm.
So I would always say try to, talk to your pediatrician if they recommend anything. Try to follow through with that. And then after you get the evaluation, you may have a better picture of whether that's something that your child needs or not. So that's the first answer. The second answer is go with your gut. If you have any concerns that your child is not eating, let's talk about feeding real quick. If your
Hmm.
child's not eating easily or you're concerned about it for whatever reason, it never hurts to reach out and at least, ask the questions and see if bringing your child in for an evaluation would be beneficial. Same thing with speech and language. Even if your pediatrician says they're passing everything, your preschool teachers say everything looks good, if you have any concerns, it's always a good idea to not wait and see. It's always a good idea just to bring somebody in, or at least just reach out to an actual therapist to
Yes.
see, these are my concerns. What do you recommend at this point? Because
So
there's a wide range of normal. So
I'm hearing the big message is trust your gut.
yes, 1,000%. Yes.
Got it. Good. So how is a feeding delay related to a delay in speech or language? Tell us, what's that connection?
Yes. So they can be completely disparate. So just because you have a feeding delay does not necessarily mean that you're going to have any speech and language delay
Hmm.
or articulation delay. But there is about a 40% comorbidity on that, which means that approximately 40% of kids who have diagnosable feeding delays or disorders will also have another form of developmental delay. Typically, speech and language. The reason is because the same areas in the brain kind of work with both of those things. The same muscles. Your mouth is and tongue and all that is
Sure.
used for feeding, and your mouth and tongue and language areas in your brain are used for speech as well, and language processing, understanding language, and being able to put your words together and age appropriately. All those tend to happen in overlapping areas in the brain. So that's the short answer of how they're related. And then of course too, in certain populations, so premature children are at much higher risk of any developmental delay.
Mm.
So it's rare that if they do have delays, that they're only going to have one small area. All of them can make huge progress in all of those areas. So it's not, a lifelong issue for many of them, but they're at much more risk for comorbidity of feeding and language and speech delays.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about neurodiversity. What is neurodiversity? How do you define that? Let's inform people what that is and what they should be looking for.
Yes. So neurodiversity, I like to explain it in very literal terms. So the terminology neuro is obviously the brain and the way of thinking. And
Hmm.
then diversity is obviously different ways of how the brain thinks. So basically, neurodiversity is just the thought that everybody's brain is wired differently. We have started to use that term to really house a certain group of things that had kind of disparate labels. So
Hmm.
one is autism. Autism falls within neurodiverse because their brains simply are not wired the same as neurotypical brains, which
Hmm.
simply means 70 to 80% of brains do not think that way. That's what neurotypical means, is that 70 to 80% of brains think a certain way.
Yes.
Um, so autism falls within neurodiversity. And then, of course, within the autism, it's a spectrum. So even with that diagnosis, you've got a wide range of differences within that. So it's very diverse ways of thinking. Also, they've put in other things that had disparate labels like ADHD, dyslexia. Those are also considered neurodiverse. Also, now they're researching gifted are neurodiverse because
Hmm.
it's simply not in that 70 to 80% of neurotypical ways of thinking. So,
Interesting.
yes.
And how is the diagnosis and treatment of these different disorders? I guess it's a disorder as opposed to a disease, but how
Mhm.
has this evolved? And how are we getting better or worse at either
Yes.
diagnosing or treating this neurodiversity?
Right. So I think it is a very good movement towards improvement in diagnosing and treatment. The older model of all of these different, issues that are now housed in neurodiversity, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, even gifted, that sort of thing. Most of them outside of gifted would be that these are problems and we have to teach the brain to think typically. We have to
Hmm. Hmm.
stop these problem behaviors, problems in thinking, and fix these children,
Hmm.
if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
Whereas the neurodiversity movement, which is also called neuroaffirming, so it's basically trying to say, hey, these kids are, and adults too, these
Yeah.
kids are wired differently. Instead of trying to fit the round peg in a square hole, why don't we work with how their brain works and get functionality and improvements that way?
Got it.
So you can see how that evolution and treatment has a lot of promise for,
Mm-hmm.
for anything, because the stigma, hopefully the idea is that the stigma goes away or
Mm-hmm.
gets better. It also treats them more as individuals and human beings versus something to fix.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very helpful in those ways. Diagnosis in about the 2010s, that era opened up widely. So a lot more people are able to get diagnosed because the criteria that they use to diagnose opened up
Mm-hmm.
more, which is great because then you get more help for it. So that's kind of how the diagnosis has changed as well. So all of these things I think are moving in the right direction. I do get a little concerned with over labeling and over diagnosis and
Yes.
fitting people into these labels.
Yes.
But overall, I think it's moving in the right direction to treat them all as individuals. This is how your brain functions. How are we going to help you get where you need to be or where you want to be?
So I really like the way you're describing this as moving from trying to fix somebody to
Mhm.
trying to work with somebody, I guess, and their individuality and to see what's
Right.
going to work with them. How does that, what's that process like? If you're not trying
Right.
to fix them, what are
Mhm.
you helping them with?
Right. So there could be a lot of specific answers to this. I'll give one example is, kids with ADHD. This is a literal example, but they tend to fidget a lot, because ADHD is not that their brain is overstimulated and that they're hyper in their brain, they're understimulated in their brain.
Hmm.
So their body's trying to find stimulation. That's why they do
Mm.
with ADHD, it's why they tap their foot a lot.
Hmm.
Different kids
Hmm.
do it differently. That's
Right.
why their body is more, quote, distracted because their brain's trying to stimulate itself. It can pay attention beautifully if their brain is stimulated.
Hmm.
So what we used to do, where we were taught to take everything off the table, make sure there's no distractions, and then that child can focus. Well, that's how a neurotypical brain attends well, but it is not how a brain with ADHD, which is naturally understimulated, attends well.
Yep.
So I think, switching that, letting them have a fidget or like, things on the table, letting them stop trying to stop their body's natural compensation
Hmm.
while you try to get where you need to go, while you work on concepts, you work on, executive function, that sort of thing.
Got
So
it.
that's kind of an example. Same
Good.
with autism, the stimming behaviors, which, because a lot of kids with autism will have stimming behaviors where they, flap their hands when they're excited or,
Mm.
different things that they do. Their body needs them to do that. So if we stop it and focus because it's atypical, nobody wants their child to flap their hands. They want them to, have their hands nicely in their lap. They don't want it to look atypical. So they tend to we used to work on stopping those atypical behaviors. Now we work on these are there for a reason. How do we work with what the brain is naturally trying to do to help? How do
Mm.
we work with that and integrate it into therapy? And functionally, as a therapist, you see huge improvements with that versus trying to get them to speak a certain way, trying to get them to focus a certain way, trying to get them to do this. It just doesn't turn into anything
Right.
functional. So, those are kind of examples.
Good. I'm glad we're making progress in this area because there's,
Yes.
20% of people that are not
Hmm.
neurotypical and you
Right.
want them to live a normal life.
Right. Exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
So let's talk about infants a little bit. We'll go back and talk about that. What's the difference between normal picky eating in children
Mhm.
and what's a pediatric feeding disorder? How do you distinguish between those
Yes.
two? Where's the line that we can draw here?
Right. Great question. It's not a black and white line, but it's definitely a difference. Kids typically, especially from 18 months, give or take, to 4 years, are notoriously picky. It's a part of just their brains are developing. They're getting more able to say what they like and what they dislike. And so they are going to be somewhat picky. Most children are going
Hmm.
to be somewhat picky. So it's normal to like chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese and have to work to get your child to eat the broccoli.
Hmm.
That's pretty normal. Some kids are going to eat everything under the sun. That's wonderful. But most kids will have some preferences. It becomes, in that aspect, it becomes more of a pediatric feeding disorder when it hinders their development. So by that, which means that they are so picky or they are so restricted in their food that it hinders their social development, because mealtime and food is hugely related to socializing and spending time with your family.
Wait.
Mhm.
Tell this,
Yeah.
that's a connection I didn't know about. Tell me about this again.
Right. So feeding is one of the main aspects of development for especially small children, because you're mainly within the family unit. Even if you have daycare or preschool or,
Yes.
friends, you're mainly every day with a family unit. That's a huge social development marker, is food.
Hmm.
So everybody tends to get around the table, or at least you're in the same house, and
Yes.
you're eating and you talk while you're eating. You get pleasure while you're eating. You get to express your likes and dislikes while you're eating. It's a huge social marker
Mm.
of social development for children. So if you have a child that is so extremely picky that it is making it difficult for him to get success and participate in mealtime, then that can be an issue. So
Got it.
it can be as simple as that, or it can be more complex. Whereas your child's not gaining weight, your child's not eating enough, your child's having a hard time chewing the food, your child's rejecting food almost to where they're not eating anything.
Hmm.
Um, Nutrition and everything is more obviously affected. So there's a whole gamut that you can have. But pickiness is normal to a point. Not a problem if your child fights you on broccoli. That's what they're going to do usually. It's more of an issue if you can never get anything but these three foods in them, and that's difficult. That's
Right.
usually where it is time to at least reach out and just see, is this typical, or is this something we can work on at home, or is this something that might benefit from a professional
If
to
I
help us
can
out?
digress for a moment on broccoli, I
Yes.
remember the first president, George Bush, said publicly he did not like broccoli. And the Broccoli Growers Association delivered two huge truckloads of broccoli to the White House, which Barbara Bush graciously accepted. I happened to be
Right.
there when those two trucks drove up, but it was just so
Yeah.
funny that his off the hand comment of
Right.
like broccoli resulted
Yeah.
in that. So
We
anyway,
were getting there. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for letting me share that story. So tell
Yeah.
me, what are some things that parents can do at home to promote early language development?
Yes, so there's lots and lots of things. One thing is to provide short and sweet specific feedback to what your child's doing. Children are wired to want to be interested in themselves, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Hmm.
So when your 18-month-old looks at a ball and says, ba, instead of saying say ball, just say, yeah, that's a ball. That's what
Hmm.
I mean by short and sweet specific feedback. That's going to give them success in it. So they're more likely to continue to say ball and to continue to label things more. Not giving them that feedback is not going to stop their language development. But
Hmm.
if they are a little bit delayed, or even if they're not, and you're just there to facilitate their language, that's a really simple thing that you can do that has been proven to facilitate their language learning.
Hmm.
If you give them a little direction, go get your shoes and bring them to mommy. Once they do it, give them that little short and sweet feedback instead of saying something broad like good job, because they don't really know what they did, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
You can say just a really sweet, short and sweet, oh, good, you got your shoes and brought them to mommy, and
Got
then
it.
move on. Tiny things like that will help with language development. Another thing is in engaging in play with your child, because their brains are very wired to learn through play. That's how they're wired. Even school age kids will still learn much better through play skills than drill and practice.
Hmm.
So just sitting down and letting your kid play with whatever they're playing with and let them lead it, and you just kind of following through. Their brains are going to soak up everything in that in that situation.
Got it. What do you do? A parent knows that their child is brilliant. They know they're
Mhm.
understanding everything and maybe even
Right.
in anticipating acting things out, but they're not talking. What
Yes.
what should happen here?
Right. So one thing to do is, again, go with your gut. So typically language is going to be somewhat commensurate. So there's different parts of language. So you have, the short answer is, you have receptive language, which is how you're understanding concepts for your age, how you're processing information for your age. Then you have expressive language, which is how you're expressing that information for your age. So there's different norms for different ages. A
Hmm.
2-year-old is not supposed to be talking in complete paragraphs,
Hmm.
but a 6-year-old is. So there's definitely different norms. Sometimes it's very easy to tell if a child is understanding things, if they're following all your directions and they're doing, and it's just easy for you to know they're understanding what I'm saying. My
Yes.
child is brilliant. If you really feel like there's a gap between the two, I would definitely just reach out to a speech therapist or go and look on some of the speech therapy websites, that because a lot of them, like ours in particular, will give you some basic milestones to look through. Then
Hmm.
you can kind of alleviate your fear of, oh, okay, well, they're not supposed to be talking in sentences yet, or they've still got time for this to be typical.
Yes.
If there's any discrepancies in that, you can always reach out to your pediatrician and just ask for a referral, or reach out directly to a speech therapist, because sometimes testing gives you a baseline. So if there is a delay and we recommend therapy, then you're getting them in early, and early intervention is key to everything.
Hmm.
If they do come in and they're brilliant and they're not talking, but it's age appropriate at that point, then you've got a baseline for in 6 months. If they're still not talking, maybe at that point it would require therapy. So yeah, so that's what I would do if your child is, brilliant, processing everything beautifully, and you're just worried about them not talking, because you can have very specific expressive language delay.
Got it. So let me give people your website so they can go to learn more. It's called Speech Matters Clinic,
Mhm.
speechmattersclinic.com. And if you can
Yes.
go there, what will they find when they come to your website there?
Yes. So there is a helpful information page, and it goes through milestones at different ages and different characteristics of what the typical child is doing at that age,
Hmm.
and all the areas. So it goes through play skills, gesture, speech and language skills. It also goes through the occupational therapy side, which has to do with fine motor skills, sensory integration skills. So kids who like have a really hard time with haircuts, they really have a hard time, taking a bath, or like having people around them, or anything they're really sensitive to the noise in the bathroom,
Hmm.
anything like that. There's a wide range of normal. It's only an issue if it's hindering your child's success in anything.
Hmm.
But those are little things that you can see what is the norm for that age too, which is helpful. So, and
Great.
there's also, obviously, you can reach out with any questions on the website too. That goes directly to me. So I'll be the one responding to all of those questions from the website.
Good. So again, people can see you at your clinic or through telehealth, and you do see people virtually.
Yes, we definitely see people virtually as well.
Good. So another question I have is, when would a parent want to talk with their pediatrician about a problem versus going directly to a speech therapist? Is there a delineating line when a parent should say, look, my pediatrician, I'm not sure is really dealing with it or doesn't know.
Mhm.
When should
Mhm.
they reach out to a speech therapist?
Right. So you don't have to reach out to a pediatrician with speech and language issues. You can go directly to a speech therapist.
Mhm.
If there's any question about anything medical, I would always recommend at least having that discussion with
Yes.
your therapist, with your pediatrician, excuse me.
Yes.
So a lot of times the pediatrician will give you screenings, and if you don't pass the screenings, they're going to refer you anyway.
Hmm.
But sometimes they'll pass all the screenings and you still have a concern. So you can definitely talk to the pediatrician about that, and usually they will refer you to a speech therapist. But if they don't really kind of agree with your concerns, you can easily still go to a therapist, a
Got it.
speech therapist, to do
Okay.
that.
Good. So I'll just underline here, trust your gut, right?
Yes, yes,
Good.
yes, yes. I feel like parents are parents know their child the most, because that's their child.
Yes.
So as much as you need to be open to all the professionals, because they have so much knowledge and so
Hmm.
much expertise, you still have to, yeah, trust your gut and know that if you do have a concern, it's valid. So to, reach out to people who can give you more information.
Good. Ashlyn, thanks so much for this discussion. I'm wondering, are there any questions I didn't ask that I should have, or what kind of big message would you like to leave with people today?
Yes. So I think my big message, I said a little bit of it a second ago, but my big message is to realize that you are your child's kind of advocate. You are the expert on your child. So
Yes.
just be very aware that if you do have a concern, it's there for a reason. So it's a good thing to reach out and get all the information you can, whether that means actually getting an evaluation or, going to the therapist, or if it's just reading more information. If you do have a concern, don't feel like you're being hysterical or,
Mm,
worried unnecessarily about your child. It's completely within your right and benefits you to get more information with
good.
that. And usually, when I have children who come in for whatever reason that we're assessing them for, usually parents know exactly what's going on. They just don't have the terminology
Hmm.
to 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 state it on paper.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
usually parents are right on with exactly what is going on with their child. And then we can help you put that into terms that are understandable for speech and language or for feeding.
Got it. Good.
Mhm.
Ashlyn, I'm so glad we've had this discussion today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, me too. It's been a pleasure.
Good. We've been speaking with Ashlyn Lele. She's the founder of the Speech Matters Clinic. The Speech Matters Clinic provides quality private speech, language feeding, and occupational therapy services to children and adults of all ages. Speech Matters was founded in 2009 by Ashlyn, so she's got some experience. They offer a personalized and welcoming boutique-style environment catered to each family's specific needs. It's their belief that every person deserves the right to excel and express their unique personality, and they work as a team with you to ensure success. And again, you can learn more and get in touch with Ashlyn at speechmattersclinic.com. Thanks again for being with us, Ashlyn. It's been great.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Good. This has been Jonathan Marks. Remember, you can subscribe to us at gotohealthmedia.com or on YouTube or 8 different podcast networks, including Apple and Spotify. If you like what we're doing, please give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review. We're really focused on evidence-based medicine, and when you give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review, it helps get the word out to more people. Thanks so much for being with us today. This has been Jonathan Marks with Go to Health. And as we say at the end of every show, go to health. God bless. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in today to Go to Health. You are one of almost 10,000 people per day who enjoy the evidence-based health information offered by our guest health experts. You can watch us on our website and YouTube and listen to us on 8 podcast networks. Be sure to join Jonathan Marks in our upcoming shows each week. If you like our show, please share this episode with your friends and colleagues. You can subscribe to the show, join our email list, send us feedback, browse through the online store, and view our library of over 150 shows at gotohealthmedia.com. See you next time, and remember to elevate your life with Go to Health.